Hello and welcome back to our cottage garden. It's July and I thought we'd give you a tour today. Feels like it's been absolutely ages since we showed you around, and the weather's not been great either, so we've been hiding from the rain. As you can see, it's a bit overcast and grey today, so not the nicest of weathers, but I think the plants have really appreciated the rain because we had a month before this with no rain at all and the soil was looking really dry. So it's been lovely to have a bit of rain and see things looking lush and green. I thought we would show you around down here and I can talk you through what's going on. The first thing I wanted to show you was my Erigeron steps, and these normally look at their best between now and October, but this year I seem to have lost a lot of plants, and I don't know whether it was something to do with the really cold winter that we had, and thankfully Erigeron self-seeds amazingly, so my strategy with this is if I see one of the flowers go to seed, I grab the seeds off the top and just chuck them, and some of them will become new plants and those will spread. But it feels like we've gone back maybe a year in progress on these steps, so that's kind of a shame. But it is a relief that we still have plants here at all, and hopefully next year they'll look good again. But if you've been following us for a while, you might remember that last July our Erigeron steps looked so much better than they do now. I am just looking around though and I can see loads of new seedlings, especially forget-me-nots. Those are self-seeding absolutely everywhere around here, and I haven't decided whether or not to leave those in, so let me know if you think that would look nice to have those flowering next spring. But this is where we grow strawberries, and we had quite a pathetic strawberry harvest this year, and I think it was because I have changed the plants. So in the autumn last year I removed all the mature plants and put runners in to set some fresh plants down, and hopefully next year they'll give us a good harvest. But I think I've had about 5 strawberries. So while it's a little bit gappy, I've put some cosmos in to fill the gaps. I did put 5 plants in, but the slugs chose 2, completely decimated them, and then left the other 3. So we've got 3 that are looking really healthy and lovely. These are called something like lemon something. They're a soft yellow colour. If you know the name, please do remind me, because I cannot remember for the life of me what they are. But they are gorgeous, and these will get quite big over the next few months and should flower into October. So that gives us some nice life down here when it's looking otherwise quite green and not too many flowers. We've got 2 types of lavender flowering down here at the moment. The first one was here when we moved in, and I don't think anyone has cut it back over time, so it got really leggy and long. And I actually cut this back quite hard last year. It still looks quite messy and sprawling, but the bees absolutely love it. And I think it would be a shame for me to pull it out and put new ones in when it's already there, and it looks nice if you can get over the fact that it's not properly manicured. But I think that's the nice thing about cottage garden style, is things are always quite loose and free, and if you can get over that, then it's still lovely to have in the garden. And then behind me, high up, I've got Hidcote, which is a darker purple type of lavender, and I put this in myself about 2 or 3 years ago, and I started them from the tiniest plugs. They were about 3 centimetres, and when they arrived I was a bit disappointed at how small they were, and I thought that's never going to grow. But here we are 2 or 3 years later, and they look great, and they're a nice kind of compact size because I've kept on top of shaping them. But I did lose 1 plant. Again, I'm going to put it down to the really cold winter, not sure why exactly, but I've replaced it, so you'll see it's almost a hedge with a gap slap bang in the middle, and there's a new young plant in the middle, so hopefully next year that will look more like a hedge. But I really like the colour of that. It's such an intense purple, and again the bees love it. You can also see our herbs here are doing really well. We've got rosemary, we've got mint, and we've got some thyme. The thyme has flowered and gone over. The mint hasn't flowered yet, and neither has the rosemary, so we've got that to look forward to soon. This bed makes me feel quite encouraged because it was one of the first things that I planted when we moved in. So to see that things are quite big and established now makes me feel better about the parts of the garden that I started within the last year or 2, and they're looking a bit on the sparser side at the moment. So this makes me feel good, and I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the garden put on this amount of growth as well. There's a few things in here that I cut back after flowering too. So we've got this Nepeta, and this is a really lovely soft purple colour. And I took loads and loads of cuttings from this, and I put about 7 plants around the garden just from 1 plant that I bought from the garden centre. So great value as far as I'm concerned, but this should flower again soon, and I really love the way it kind of spills over the steps, and that's my aim for this space, is to have, with the Erigeron and the Nepeta, kind of soft flowing flowers that soften the edges of the stone. But let's move up the garden and I can show you some other things. So if I'm honest, there are things that I sometimes just don't show when I'm making my YouTube videos because they look a mess, and I'm sure everyone has that bit of their garden that they're not feeling super proud of. So our pond is currently a bit of a disaster site. We did have someone round to come and do a puncture repair on the pond, but they found so many holes from the dogs and the ducks and other creatures jumping in and out of the water and then clawing at the tarpaulin and tearing it. But when we get this fixed, we are not having it made with tarpaulin again because it's super thin and crumply and tears really easily. We're going to be using a really thick rubber lining, and it comes with a lifetime guarantee. So hopefully we won't find ourselves in this situation again. But I'm really looking forward to getting this sorted because it's something that has never really looked good since we moved in. It was initially full of invasive flag iris, and then when those came out, it got torn and the water level dropped. So it will be amazing to have this looking nice, and instead of being an eyesore, I just can't wait to get it sorted. So stay tuned for that, and I might even make a video about this on its own to show you the process of changing the lining and draining it and putting the plants back in and things. But this is the worst you will ever see it, I hope. I thought I would stop and show you this shrub quickly. I'm not actually sure what this is, so if you know the name of it, please do share, because this is another one that was here when we moved in. And I really wanted to show you this a week or two ago. It has these gorgeous purple flowers. You can see there's one purple, one left, and then they fade to white before turning to seed heads. It's stunning and the bees love it. I just don't know what it is. So if you do know, please let me know. I do use that feature on my phone to identify plants, but it can't make up its mind, and it's come up with 3 different ideas for this one. So yeah, anyone that knows, we will be grateful for your advice. Another thing that's looking really lovely at the moment is our Clematis, and this one's called Blue Angel. I've got 2 of them, and this one's a little bit happier because it gets more light. This one's climbed up a plum tree and the other one is climbed up an elder tree. I really love these, and they get bigger and bigger each year. So I think we're on year 3 of these now. Gorgeous colour, and I've been deadheading them a bit, and they will repeat flower for a little while, so I'll keep deadheading those. But in this area in general, I'm having kind of a July gap. As I've mentioned before, I garden mostly for winter and spring, and this time of year my borders don't look particularly inspiring. It's just a few kind of gems dotted around. But there are a few other things to show you up here, so let's take a wander that way. I also wanted to stop here and show you this bit of the lawn which I have not been mowing. I mow the lawn occasionally, but if there's something going on that I like the look of, then I leave it and let it flower. And we've got loads of clover in this area, and I just love the flowers. I think they're so pretty and nice for the insects to leave them to flower as well. So this area I'm not going to mow until the flowers have gone over, and there's other patches in the garden that I can see have a lot of clover in as well. But I've noticed online clover lawns seem to be a bit of a trendy thing at the moment, and people say that they're lower maintenance and you don't need to mow them, and they're good nitrogen fixers. So it's got a lot of good qualities going for it, but I just think it's really lovely, and this kind of stuff that people would say is weedy or messy is definitely something to be embraced in a cottage garden. Next to me we have our raspberry plants, and these are going mad now. They're putting on so much new growth. They haven't quite finished fruiting. There's still a bit of fruit on here, and I've not been that great at picking them this year, unfortunately. But if I don't eat them, the birds will, so it's not going to waste. But I will be removing this year's growth once we've finished with the fruit, and then tying in the new growth so that it can give us fruit next year. Not quite ready yet though. We've still got to wait a little bit for the rest of the raspberries to mature and ripen. And there's still loads on here, so I'm looking forward to eating these. Before we go in the polytunnel, I wanted to show you the hollyhocks because these are doing really well. We've never really had any problems with these. There's like a tiny bit of rust at the bottom maybe, but they seem to do really well here. And my neighbour sowed these from seed during the pandemic and gave us some of the seedlings. And it's one of those things that you see the plant in your garden and it reminds you of a person or an experience, and that's one of my favourite things about gardening. But she thought they were going to be a really soft pale pink colour, and they turned out to be this really kind of, it's between black and red, I would say, maybe a bit of purple in there as well, but I love that. It's so gorgeous, and it's not a colour I would have thought that I'd like, but I actually really like them. And hollyhocks is something I want to grow way more of. I've sown some seed in the greenhouse, so hopefully more to come next year. But let's go and have a look in the polytunnel. So the main thing going on here is tomatoes. You can see the cabbage white butterflies have moved in, and I always feel a bit bad netting things off from the cabbage white. So generally I eat things and harvest them to a point, and then I just let the butterflies have the things for the rest of the year. But I've never really grown kales and cabbages and other brassicas that intensely. I kind of just dot them round, and if I get one then it's fun, but we're not self-sufficient, so it doesn't bother me as much as it would other people. But I think if I did get more interested in growing cabbages, I probably would net them. But I find as well my perennial kale doesn't get too bothered by the cabbage whites, and I just feel sorry for them. I know a lot of people hate them, and they do. The little caterpillars and poo and things isn't very nice to have on the plants, but they are a butterfly, and they're I think our butterflies just need all the help they can get, so I let them eat things. I know it's not to everyone's taste, but that's how we do it here. But I wanted to show you the tomatoes because these are doing amazing. So at the moment I'm just pulling the suckers out. That's the little off the little shoots that you get between the leaf and the main stem. I just pinch those out and twist the tomatoes onto the string so they've got something to climb up. But when they get to the top, I will pinch the top off and give them a good feed, and then we can see the fruits ripening and growing. I think I've got about 5 varieties, and I've got no idea what any of them are, because I sow a few different types at the start of the year and I don't really label them very well. And then I swap with my mother-in-law as well, who's got an allotment, and we end up with a nice mix of different fruits. So we might figure out what these are once the tomatoes themselves start ripening and we can identify them, but I haven't written down what they are, so it's going to be a bit of potluck. But I'm happy with how they're coming along. No signs of blight or any problems so far, and it's a relief at the moment because last year I had such a bad year for tomatoes. So it's good to see that this year's going to be better. And we've got some other things going on in here. We've got a cucumber here, and this I'm just climbing up a little tripod structure that I've made out of some old bamboo canes. We have a butternut squash, which is still quite young, so that one doesn't have any flowers on, but it's just got a nice long bit of growth that I'm going to try and train up this trellis. I've got a grapevine that is one of the things I kind of regret buying as a cutting because it's taken me ages to actually get any fruit from it. But it was during the pandemic when everything was really expensive. I bought it from eBay as a cutting from someone's garden, and I really wanted a red dessert grape that doesn't have seeds in so that we can actually eat them. And just this year, as it's starting to get long enough to climb this trellis, and my aim is to have it be a kind of permanent feature in the polytunnel that will completely cover this trellis here. It's just taking such a long time, 3 years until it looks like it's an actual grapevine at all, and probably won't get any fruit from it until next year. But at least it's happening, and things are taking off. I think anyone else who started a garden during the pandemic will have had similar difficulties ordering plants and getting things started and having to buy super tiny plugs for a lot of money. We've got another cucumber here that I'm climbing up this trellis. Again, this one looks quite happy and healthy at the moment, and putting on lots of new growth and lots of flowers, so that's good. And I have let a few things go to seed in here to bring in some pollinators. So obviously I've got the chamomile down there, and I've let the parsley go to seed, which brought loads of pollinators in. Some lettuce as well down there, and obviously the tomatoes have got flowers on, so hopefully that will bring something in to help pollinate the cucumber plants. A sad little melon plant that I don't think is going to do anything, and I should probably pull it out, but it's one of those things that I sowed it back in January or February in the house, and I put so much love and attention into it, I'm not ready to accept defeat. So although I don't think it will do anything, I'm probably going to leave it in the ground. On the other side of the tunnel though, I have got a melon plant that's doing really well, and this one is called Charentes, something like that. Let me know if you know what that is. I can't read my own writing. But yeah, this one's getting bigger every time I come out here. It's amazing. And can I see any fruit on it yet? Is it still too early? I think it's still too early, but there's lots of tiny flowers, so I'm hoping again that we start seeing some fruit on that soon. And these dahlias have miraculously survived the coldest winter. And I lifted about 8 dahlia tubers and stored them in boxes in the shed, and all of them rotted. I think it was just so cold. These ones I left in the ground and I couldn't be bothered to dig them up, and I thought if I lose them, it's fine, I've got others in the shed, and didn't expect at all for these to be the ones that survived, and they've thrived as well. And these are dinner plate dahlias, so they'll have some really big fluffy flowers on once they do flower, but a little bit too early at the moment. I put some purple sprouting broccoli in here just because I had leftover seedlings, and I did this at the request of one of you guys in the comments who said, can you put some in somewhere where it's going to be sheltered from the wind because they'll blow over. So I've got a few in here. They're getting quite tall now, and I've never grown purple sprouting broccoli before. You can see they're a little bit nibbled as well from the butterflies that are coming in, so who knows how that's gonna do, but it's an experiment. I've got a loofah here, which is looking lovely and long. I've only grown these once before, and I will dry the marrow that comes off it and use it as a kind of washing up loofah. And it's good because it's biodegradable, but it's just a bit of fun. But it's really, really lovely to be in here and see growth, and things get bigger by the day. I give everything a feed with some homemade comfrey fertiliser, which I will show you how I make in a minute, once a week, but it's not super regimented because I don't have a very good memory. It's just whenever I'm out here, and it's been a little while since I fed them. I also have maybe 10 aubergine plants dotted around here, and most of them are by the front door, but there's a couple down here just where I had space. I've got some basil and leeks dotted in between things, but my aim with the space is to kind of jumble things up more than I would have done in the past, just to help with the soil having a bit of diversity in the roots that are down, and so that when things like if the tomatoes finish and I cut the plants down, there'll still be life in the soil where the leeks that are down here will be carrying on, and maybe the basil won't have finished. And that should keep some structure in the soil so it's not completely starting afresh each time I've finished with a block of plants. Let's go and have a look at the vegetable garden next, because there's some lovely things out there too. So first I want to show you our annual flower patch, because this has got more growth on it still. There are buds on top of the asters, but not quite flowering yet. And the nicotianas are looking so pretty. I really, really like these, and I've never grown them before. And I didn't think that I would, but they were given to me by my mother-in-law, who's growing some at her allotment. So I've got nicotiana, asters, and some sunflowers in this bed, and really happy because we only started this a month or two ago, and it's looking so big and lush already. Really, really pleased. And the sunflowers have put on so much growth since I put them in. So this compost must be good. The other thing I wanted to show you is our asparagus, and this year I was really worried about Asparagus Beetle in the spring. So you come out here and you see little eggs and larvae on the plants, and I have never seen so many as I did in spring. And since then it seems like they've completely disappeared, so I don't know if we've got a bird or a natural predator that's been eating them. But in the spring I was coming out here and squashing the beetles, picking off the larvae, and haven't had a single problem with them in the last 2 or 3 weeks, so that's quite bizarre. Let me know if you found the same if you grow asparagus, or if you do know of any natural predators that we might have that would be helping with it. But pleasantly surprised, and I just love asparagus. I think it's such a pretty thing to have in the garden after you've harvested it and you let it go into these big fern plants. It's gorgeous. I really, really love it. We've also got our cup and saucer vine that I've planted in this bed, and that's nicely climbing over these arches. So we have one on each arch, and that should be flowering sometime soon. It said between July and October. So there's a few things on there that look like they could be buds, but it's not something I've grown before, so I'm not 100% certain. But I'm happy with how it's coming along, and I think it will look really, really lovely as we move into August. There are a couple of things that I've added to this area in the last few weeks. So in the troughs at the back, I have added some Rudbeckia that I grew from seed, and I grew loads of these plants. I think I had about 30 to 40, and I gave some to my neighbour because I had too many, but I've dotted them around, and they are a perennial. They're called Goldstrum, I think. So I've got 4 in each trough, and I'm hoping that will give us some late season interest. So we should have this lovely yellow colour at the back and some purple over the arches as the cup and saucer vine flowers too. So looking forward to seeing those. The Jerusalem artichokes that I started in this bed are doing really well as well. They looked a bit sad when I put them in because it was so hot, but I think this cool weather has been good for new plants. So they are looking really nice. I do find these keep getting dug up and eaten by something, but because they are quite a vigorous plant, they will keep surviving, but they don't grow as quickly as they would otherwise. But overall, I'm happy with how everything's going in this area, and it feels like it's becoming more of a place where it sort of looks after itself, and that's amazing. I do need to make another batch of comfrey fertiliser now, so I'm going to show you how I do that using my comfrey hedge. And basically what I'm going to do is just make a giant tea bag to put in my water butts. So I'll be cutting down the comfrey, stuffing it in this Hessian sack, and this is biodegradable, so after I've used it in my water butts to make comfrey fertiliser, it can go straight on the compost bin and it will further break down there. I have tried doing this with an old pair of tights as well, but as they were plastic, I didn't really like the process of separating out the finished product from the tights and putting them in the bin. It was a bit disgusting. So if I can put the whole thing on my compost heap, I think that's a win. And I have actually cut down some of this comfrey this week already to make some more comfrey tea. So I just cut it down, scrunch it up, and then stuff it in the bag. And these plants will come back within a couple of weeks' time, and you can just keep cutting from them. This is my third time making comfrey fertiliser from this hedge this year. And having nettles in here is quite beneficial too, because I think it makes the fertiliser more balanced in terms of nutrients. Now that I've stuffed as much as I can in there, I'm just going to go around the top with some biodegradable string and tie it. If I was super organised, I might try and sew some of this in so that I could fill the bag right to the top without leaving a gap, but I am not that organised today. So I'm just going to scrunch that up and then tie it. Now we can put this in the water butt and leave it for the next few weeks to break down and make a liquid fertiliser. So that's nice and full because of the rain that we've been having. And I'm literally just going to leave that in there to infuse. And then put the lid back on, and in a couple of weeks' time we'll be able to use that for feeding our tomatoes. And I've got 2 of these big water butts on the go with the comfrey tea bag system, and then I've got a couple of buckets that I make fertiliser in as well. So we should have enough to keep us going throughout the whole growing season. But there you go. I hope you've enjoyed having a look around our garden today and seeing what's going on in July. Remember to give us a subscribe if you'd like to see how our garden develops over the months and years, and we'll see you next time.